for joining Sparky's family for our Maroon and Gold Family Connection live chat. My name is Andre Littlejohn, and I'm a senior here at ASU studying political science with a double minor in communication and youth services leadership. Today we are joined by Nicole Taylor, Deputy Vice President and Dean of Students, and Dr. Eric Krasno, Associate Vice President of Health Services and Counseling Services. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So today we are discussing the topic of coming home, connecting with your evolving student. Parents and family members, feel free to post questions that you have in the comment section as we go along. So Erin, Nicole, many students will be going home for Thanksgiving or for winter break after being away at college for several months. Parents and students will likely have different expectations. That will be like, is that correct?
Yes, well, you've experienced that.
Yes, I definitely have. As an out-of-state student, I understand what it's like. So what are some of the biggest changes parents can expect to see in their students? Are there anything that they should be worried about with these changes?
Well, I'll start. So I think for parents, the key is who is this person that is about to come home? Because the last time I really lived with this person, they were in high school under my rules, under my guidelines, under my guidance. We had a certain rhythm. We talked a certain way. Now we speak by text, maybe by phone every once in a while. And I'm just, so there's a lot of curiosity, I think, on the parent side. And then on the student side, I don't even think they're thinking about it. It's like, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to get fed. I'm going to get my clothes washed. I'm going to do all of these things. And they're not actually thinking consciously of what it means to have been really free and under your own rules to go right back into your family's home. So I think there's just so curiosity on one end to not even thinking about it on the student side.
Yeah, and the one of the biggest challenges I think for parents is that when someone lives with you or you see them a lot, the developmental changes over time, you start not to notice that change because it just sort of flows. If you spend time away from someone, you can really see the difference, and those changes seem a lot bigger. So that's challenging for both parents and students because the development's always been there. It developed when they were in high school, but there was proximity to the person, and so you could kind of flow it all together.
Right.
Now someone comes home, they are sort of naturally different just from time passing, plus college changes people, plus people have developed intellectually and socially and emotionally.
Right.
That can create that experience of a big gap.
Right. The opinions may be different. So when you're in high school, many times you adapt to the same values, the same morals, the same political affiliations, the same ideas, because you're all around, and then sometimes those change. And people aren't ready for that. No. They're not ready, for the independent thinker who is coming from college, or the college student saying, yeah, but this is who I am right now.
Yeah, and some parents are intellectually ready for it, but don't really know what it's going to mean when that change happens. And so many parents that we talk to say, yeah, this will be great. They'll be their own person, but then you have to experience that. And it's not necessarily bad. It might just be different than what was expected.
Right.
Absolutely. So you both mentioned it, that college changes people. College definitely will change the parents in a way that they might not understand.
Right.
So should parents try to keep the ground rules that they have in their home, such as curfews, chores, getting up on time, any of those things? And if that does happen, how do you think that'll become an issue? And what should they do if it does become an issue?
Before you even address all of that as a parent, you need to open the lines of communication and really talk about what your expectations are for them to come home, as well as what your students' expectations are for them coming home. And start there, because you may have a student who is really social in high school and doesn't want to spend any time at home and wants to be with their high school friends. That could create a problem if you're a parent and you have family obligations. There may be younger siblings, so you're expecting that college student to watch, go shopping, help cook, help do whatever it is. So before you even get to curfews and get to those kind of expectations, the general conversation is really, really important before they even get home. If you can do it live, fantastic. If not, shoot a text. What are you thinking about doing while you're coming home? Because I really need you to do X.
Yeah,
just opening the door.
I would agree with that. And once that door is open, you can set up a set of agreements, which limits conflict.
Yeah.
And so if there are agreements that need to happen about curfew, about chores, about time spent with different people, if there's a limited amount of time that someone's going to be home and everybody wants to see them, how is that person agreeable to that? And where can that student also set their own expectations and set feedback back to parents that maybe parents can agree with as well? If you go from an agreement point of view, then as the person returns home, if there are changes, then it's changing the agreement, as opposed to either bringing it up for the first time or focusing only on the conflict.
Right, right. Because without it, you know, as a college student, you get home whenever you get home. You go to sleep whenever you want. You get up whenever you want. So staying out till 4 a.m. may be a normal thing. If my son came home at 4 a.m., may not be such a great conversation, right? Unless we've had that conversation ahead of time, right? That I'd actually rather you home earlier now that you're here. You know, you have a sibling at home who's expecting to see you at breakfast or that kind of thing. So having those, even those little nuanced conversations can be really important.
So you both mentioned having prior communication before returning home. Do you have any other good strategies for parents to prepare for their Sun Devils return home, just to make the adjustment easier on everyone? Like you said, having siblings is definitely a big factor to consider.
You had a good idea about the sibling.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope I mention it.
Yes.
So sometimes, if you take siblings as an example, sometimes if parents engage their college student in an agreement on how they're going to interact with their sibling, they're co-creating a strategy that can help that sibling. Parents can say a little bit about what the sibling's been like at the time away, what maybe the sibling is looking forward to or not about the return, because it's not always positive. Sometimes it's like, oh, you're back in my space. I had parents all to myself, and who knows what. But if parents and the college student could figure out, okay, how are we going to spend time with your sister or brother, or brothers or sisters, how are we going to do that? How do you want to do it? Here's what they're expecting. Then the college student can kind of engage in a proactive sense, and then they can go towards the sibling and say, you know, maybe the sibling's really looking forward to spending time, and then the college student can frame it as, hey, I'm really looking forward to spending time with you, which can also meet the need of the sibling, but also not overwhelm either anybody in the situation. And so then it's in some ways kind of the adults, the parents, and the new adult, the college student, can get in a situation where they can help the kids who are still in the house. So that's one strategy that can help you get into this sort of adult-like conversation. And college students tend to like that because it supports their autonomy, what they've experienced in college. They're decision makers, of course they are. Parents tend to like it because it decreases conflict, particularly if there's been a set way of doing things. And so that's one strategy.
The other thing to keep in mind, when your college student comes home and hangs out with their old friend group, chances are everybody in that friend group has changed too. And that social dynamic may be really different and may catch your student off guard, and they may realize they have very little in common or less in common than they did in high school. And it's something to just pay attention to and open a conversation about, like, how was it seeing all your old friends? You know, how's their college experience, or how's their work experience if they didn't go to college right away after school? So just being alert that it's not just the family dynamic that has changed, it's also the social dynamic for the student coming home.
You know, we've talked a lot about like the college student wanting more freedom, but something else interesting happens sometimes is that parents change, as Dean Taylor said, and as a result, sometimes they're more comfortable with the freedom than actually the student is on returning home. And the student can have the experience of coming back home and wanting it to be like it used to be, wanting a little bit more close parenting, maybe a little bit more of the structure if that's something they're missing. And maybe the parents change and be like, oh, we turned your room into a gym. Like, who knows what? And then the student's like, did you forget about me? And so opening those lines of communication sometimes means the parents themselves recognizing how they've changed and how the person that is coming home may be relating to that. It may not always be like everybody just loves their freedom at that moment. Sometimes people want to return to that closeness that they might have had before.
How was it for you when you went home for that first Thanksgiving?
Well, I'm actually the oldest of three, so for me, it was knowing I was leaving two sisters. I didn't think they missed me until I actually came home, and we spent a lot of time together. We hardly argued, and not that we really argued before, but we hardly argued. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, my mom did my laundry for me, and having Thanksgiving dinner with my family was truly amazing. And my dad being a football coach, you know, it was like old times. We had our athletes over, and we're sitting on the couch, and we're all sprawled out after dinner watching football, and it was really how I wanted it to be. And I think the biggest thing for me is that I'd always, like you both said, I always talk to my parents, and, which kind of leads into that next conversation. I can't go a day without talking to my mother personally because I feel, I don't know, she's a rock in my life, but. If students haven't talked to their parents in a while, parents are obviously going to have a lot of questions. I mean, not just about school, but about social life. Do you guys have any advice on navigating those conversations so they're not so awkward?
Yeah. I think just opening up open-ended questions help more than directed yes or no questions. You know, how's studying like? What's that like versus how it was in high school? You know, what's your hardest class? What's your funnest class? You know, what's your favorite professor? Why? You know, what cool thing did you learn? You know, so keeping it open and positive also opens the door for other kind of exploratory questions about, you know, are you anxious? You know, how are you managing the workload? If there's students working in a job, you know, how are you managing case, you know, work in school and work in your job? How are you sleeping? You know, but first, making it a very positive, open-ended questioning to get the student really to open up about what's going on. Right? This is something you do every day with your mom, but not a lot of students have that same kind of connection with their parent. You know, our international students are a continent away, sometimes 2 continents away, and so for them, that could be a really big transition to go back home, particularly in December when there's several weeks and then they can take that trip. And so for those parents, it's really, you know, so tell me about your classes, tell me about your friends, what's it like living in the residence hall, you know, what's it like eating in the dorm, you know, what is that like? What did you miss about home when you were there? You know, what are you missing now that you're home and not in school? Just those kind of open-ended questions, allowed to be less confrontational and less like you're giving them the 3rd degree.
Yeah, so if you can get into a curious space as a parent, as opposed to like a fact-finding space, that allows exactly what Dean Fuller is talking about. It allows you to be curious. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, and who knows what the answer will be, as opposed to I need to find out the truth, and I need to interrogate the truth, because I need to know this thing that I don't know, which I don't think most parents intend to do with their questions, but sometimes sort of accidentally it can come across to a student as, you're trying to find out something, I don't know what that is, and I don't know how to navigate that.
So
as opposed to, tell me about your life. Like, and that's really what you're saying, but you're saying it in curious about the circumstances, about the residence halls, about the classes, about the friends. That takes time to kind of prepare yourself for that curious space, because there may be something as a parent that you're worried about, that you want to know, that you are concerned about. And that'll come out when a student feels that you are being genuinely curious and open. And it's less likely to come out if you go and try and find it.
We often tell parents to have these conversations while they're doing other activities. So if your student comes home and you're always baking pie for Thanksgiving with them, while you're baking the pie, great time to have those conversations. While you're stuffing the turkey, great time to have those conversations. While you're shopping, you know, for just groceries, while you're doing the laundry, or whatever it is to have, that's the opening to have those kind of conversations, rather than, hey, have a seat. All right, let's sit at the kitchen table, which we've never done before, and have these really deep, interesting conversations, which we've never had like this before, right? But just to really do it in a natural way, which puts your student at ease and puts you at ease as well.
So definitely, I would say even to bring that full circle, we've all established that college changes each individual. College will change how you interact not only with your parents, and we brought up siblings and your social circle when you're back home. So kind of to bring it back to that, if someone does have a younger sibling, or maybe even older sibling that's maybe at home at that time, that can cause some tension, being that you're a more independent individual. Some might even be more dependent. Presumably, you know, you have more freedoms, like you said, going in and out at 4 a.m. Not myself, I like to go to sleep at 10, but you know, how can a parent help diffuse kind of those tensions that might come up in the household?
I think it's the upfront communication. I mean, it all starts with communication, and it all starts with communicating expectations and all on both sides, and letting you know, as Dr. Krasner said earlier, letting the college student know, you know, your younger sibling is really expecting to spend all his time with you. So let's talk about that. You know, how do you really want to handle that? You're going to need to carve out some time for him, otherwise it's going to be a problem. So how do you want to handle that? You know, and it's I think being open, upfront, and transparent about it. And you know, as a parent, it's very hard for many of us to admit that we don't know, or that we don't know the answer, or we don't even know the path to the answer or solution. And a college student can handle that, right? So if you're like, I'm really not sure how to navigate this with your siblings, so I need your help. Let's work on this together, which may not be something you did when they were in high school. right? You might have been way more directive with them when they were in high school, but now, parents, a college student can handle that kind of conversation. They've been doing it on their own, independently, with their faculty members, their professors, with other students, with staff. So they can I believe that they can handle that conversation.
Yeah, that's great advice. I don't have anything to add to that.
So just to kind of recap, we said that prior communication, open communication between parent and student is going to be the most effective, especially with them coming home, understanding that the student does change as college brings them through, and this is only partway through. They still have 3.5 years left to go, and so every time it's going to be a little bit different. Right. But do you guys have any other thoughts or advice on this topic as parents are getting ready to receive their Sun Devils back home, whether they're out of state or in state?
I think it's enjoy it. Enjoy the time. Every hour is precious because you only have a few before they get back into the grind. After Thanksgiving comes finals. I think a week after Thanksgiving. So your students may also be thinking about that. So enjoy the time with them.
Yeah, and I would add that college is supposed to change you.
Yeah.
And that mindset matters. So when a student feels that, like, oh, I'm supposed to be different, I'm supposed to learn new things, I'm supposed to experience new things, and parents know that same thing, then those changes make more sense. College is not going to change that person into a brand new person that you've never met before. The student will evolve, and parents will evolve, and that is the necessary condition of college. It's why we go to college, to learn new things, to experience new things, and then to launch the next part of our life. Right. That seems to be the key variable for understanding why someone changed, because they were supposed to.
Right. Does that help?
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have tips for your fellow students who are going home?
I would just say, hug your parents, thank your parents. Let them do the small things for you, because they don't get to do it often anymore. And I think my mom missed me being at home and having I think she was texting me as much as I was calling her. Right. So I just think always say you love them, hug them tight, whoever it is that's at home with you, and just really appreciate the moments that you have. Like I said, being an older sister and having 2 younger siblings, and now getting ready to have a middle sister that's going to be going to college, and she's going to have to navigate that relationship with our younger sister. Being able to give back and show her that, hey, you can still be you can still have this love and experience, and really just move forward with that. I would just say the big thing is don't watch Netflix too much. Definitely get involved. Unless you do it with your family. That's something I'm not gonna lie to you. My dad and I watched Scandal together. So going home for the holidays was a time for us to catch up, because I didn't have cable in my residence hall. So I was able to watch that and really enjoy that. But it looks like we do have one question. So what do you do if your student wants to sleep in?
I let them sleep in. I let them sleep in. Partly because they're probably not sleeping enough throughout the semester, because they're working, they're studying, they may be up with friends. But again, having the conversation the night before, right? I know you're going to want to sleep in, but right around 11 a.m., I'm going to need you to get up and get your little sister to this, or I'm going to need you to participate in that. Chances are they're decompressing. So that sleep can actually be nurturing for them and necessary for them. But start with the conversation the night before. Yeah,
if you start with the conversation, then if someone does want to sleep in, you don't have to over-interpret it, because you kind of know where it's coming from. You're like, well, I haven't slept a lot because I was just doing this, and so can I sleep a little bit? Yes. So what time should I wake you? Because I bet if I don't, it's going to be a while.
It's going to be 1 p.m.
So now you're agreeing. You're in the negotiations. And it's more normative, as opposed to if you don't have the conversation, as Dean Taylor said, and someone sleeps in, you can misinterpret that as they're being avoidant, they're being distant.
They're too stressed.
Right, whatever. You don't know. You have the pre-conversation, then you get to find out.
Right.
Awesome. So students talk to your parents, parents talk to your students, but we are just out of time here. But thank you again, Dean Taylor and Dr. Krasno, for being here. And as always, a big thank you to our Sun Devil families for supporting your ASU students. Go Devils.